I'm Maddie.
I'm Amber. And we're Witches Talking Tarot.
We are the weirdos in this story.
Like a song, like a sailor snubble. Flip the switch and let the cauldron bubble. Sam.
Wow. Hey everybody, I'm Amber.
And I'm Maddie.
And we're Witches Talking Tarot. And today we have an amazingly fun conversation for you guys. We are going to talk about New Age. And when you look up New Age on Google, Wikipedia describes exactly what the conversation that Maddie and I are having today is. We're talking specifically about the New Age movement in the Americas because
the United States.
Yes, because
I was reading it started earlier in the UK.
Well, right, exactly. And also like there was a New Age movement in Australia.
Mm-hmm.
We are Americans. I thought about this from an American perspective, and we are specifically talking about this from the American perspective. So like there's things that can be mentioned from like outside, like Maddie said in the UK, like I said in Australia, but don't worry, maybe we'll focus on that at another time. Right now we're just talking about America in the New Age movement. I personally am mostly going to be thinking about the 80s and 90s, even though I will be talking about the 70s because it did begin in about 1971 here in America. But really, it's because of what happened before all of that. I'm so excited to have the conversation because it's really interesting.
It is a really interesting conversation. So like from what I read, in the UK, it started in like the 60s or whatever, but it really became popular in the United States around the mid 70s, 80s and 90s. It was like a huge boom.
Huge, right.
You know.
And so like the New Age spiritual movement was based on mostly things that had proceeded in other countries, but also here in America, like Theosophy started here in America in 1875. And that was based on previous European religions as well as Eastern religions like Buddhism and Hinduism, right? So like there's already this baseline in America of bringing in these Enlightenment theories that fall outside of Christianity. But what I find interesting, and this isn't about the episode, but I just feel like it leads into where we come to in the 1970s, is when you look at American religious history, right? So like the colonizers came over to escape religious persecution, and then continued to persecute everybody else of a different religious practice after they came here, right? But also lots of people came here beyond just the Protestants, because Quakers came here. There were other small sects of Christianity that came over here and were predominantly persecuted by the Protestants, but at the same time found little footholds and still survived, right? So like in the 1800s in America and the early 1900s in America, you see like I started thinking about this because of what I said to you about the 70s and 80s cults, right? And I started thinking because I like to learn about cults, y'all. Don't judge me. I have been into true crime since I was probably 10 to 12 years old. And that started because of this HBO show where this guy did autopsies and he got rich talking about it on camera in the 90s, the early 90s. But I also watched Unsolved Mysteries and all those other things that got me into all this weird shit, right? So I was interested in cults, right?
I can do certain cults. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No,
I can do certain cults. The LDS, whatever, is so hard for me. That's a hard. Like, oh, sorry, I don't like saying I wasn't called. Like, I don't mean that in a shitty way.
My face. I was like, that's so funny because I wasn't thinking of them when I was using the word cult, but you're not wrong.
Well, I'm specifically referencing like the ones that have their own like towns where people. I watched
a lot of
3-part.
Like that's why you're not wrong. They are cults.
2 or 3
Yeah, the thing was too disgusting.
Oh, I couldn't. It was so. I'm sorry. I want to slap
Warren Jeffs. Like in the a-hole in his prison cell, somebody run a train on this man.
they're still following him. And if I'm going to be honest, I want to bitch slap half the women in that fucking commune as well. And I'm going to say that in the sense that his wives let him do this shit to
But
little
they
girls,
were
their own
raised in
daughters.
this situation. They were okay. Think about when we did.
I feel like that's a
shout out
hard-
to October Pod. We did this thing with him called Is It Folk Horror, right? And he had a game show, and we were with spine chillers and serial killers and October Pod, and we did this, right? And it was folk horror.
Mhm.
And one of the things about folk horror is the strange rules that everybody goes along with in this weird mentality. It is folk horror, and that's real life folk horror. These
It's-
people are raised in a way that they don't see any other way of life. They think this is the only way to salvation. This is the only way to heaven. This is the only way to have that eternal bliss after the awful toil that we see here. And this actually is exactly what I'm talking about, because like in the 1800s, you see a ton of communities like this where they're different sects of Christianity and they have really wild ass rules because they have this specific thing they focus on or this specific thing that they disagree with the main church on. And I mean, let's be very clear. There's a ton of different branches of Christianity because of exactly that, right? But not all of them are referred to as cults, right? Because like Presbyterians, Lutherans, oh God, it starts with an E, and I forgot.
Evangelists.
No, not
Okay.
evangelists.
But
It's Episcopalians, Baptists, evangelists. All of these different names for Christian sects are because they disagree on this one thing in the Bible. So now they're a new religion, right?
Islam. No, I'm sorry. Literally, though. Literally, they disagree on this one thing.
And no, and it becomes a new religion because of that. It completely changes the doctrine, right? And so some of these groups are more mainstream, and we don't call them cults, even though maybe we should. Just like you called LDS a cult.
The Southern Baptists.
Just saying, you know.
Southern Baptists.
I think the only reason that the word cult doesn't apply to those guys is because they're the ones in charge. Anywho,
Well, and they don't live in a commune separate from other people.
I mean, some cults don't. Like they have their people so brainwashed. You go to work every day and you come back and work on the school that they promote or the whatever they do, and you give them half your paycheck or more. And you still have to live your own life because they're not taking care of you. You're taking care of them. But they have you convinced that this is the only way to God. And that is how the LDS operates as well. And it is like current day horror in that regard. But we had so many of these little sects all throughout the country of the descendants of the Europeans that came over here who were looking for something more in life. And we see it time and time again. And then we lead up to the 1970s where there's this history of that. Please, I just needed to get to the point.
For me to use the because like going all the way back because they're brainwashed into believing this way, or this is what they grew up believing this way. I feel like that could be used for racism. That could be used for so many different things. So it's so hard for me. But at the same time,
you're brainwashed. I mean, Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah, Stockholm syndrome, and not the romantic way like on Book Talk. The shitty way.
The sexy way. I mean, I can't lie. I do love Blink-182's song Stockholm Syndrome.
Yeah, not the sexy way, but like, it's which like you said brings us into the 70s.
Right, because like there's this whole history in our country of trying to find the way to God. Because like, I mean, you can take the word cult out of it, and that's what it is. They were promised this is the way to enlightenment. This is the way to join with God. This is what they were promised, and this is what they've been searching for since they came to this land in the first place.
Did you ever watch that documentary on Netflix? I did not. About that one crazy lady that convinced everybody she was God, and she was taking silver and was like blue. Was she blue?
The lady that drank too much colloidal silver and turned blue.
Yes.
Yeah, I know about all of them. Like, also,
and
don't follow Teal Swan. She's a fucking cult leader, y'all.
Well, and
please don't sue us. But you know what? If you do, I'll come at you,
some
bitch.
of these, like, and we're going to use the term cult, whatever. They claim to be New Age.
Right.
know,
Like,
they
I
do.
mean, Teal Swan was convincing people to kill themselves because it was better for humanity because humans are bad. Like, seriously. And I
God
accidentally.
damn it, she
and
got
like,
me. No, I'm just
she
kidding.
she has memes out in the spiritual community. I guarantee you have shared a Teal Swan meme. I have shared a Teal Swan meme.
I'm
Like,
oh God, I'm
she
like,
is still out there, but she's
damn
the
it.
lady that was convincing people to kill themselves.
We need to do a separate episode on cults because
We
I'm pretty
do.
sure there was one
We
that was
do,
like
like,
on the TV where they were all gonna go
The
to
space
space.
station? Oh,
yeah,
fuck
oh my
yeah,
God.
Heaven's Gate. Yeah, I know about all the cults, not just Jim Jones and the Koreshians. Like, I
Fuck
unfortunately,
that motherfucker.
yeah, Corey is so sick of me watching stuff on Waco, but I'm from Texas.
No, not wait. I'm so sorry.
Oh, you
The
were talking
Kool-Aid
Jim
guy.
Jones? Yeah,
That's
fuck
Jim
that
Jones,
guy. Yeah,
right?
mhm.
Mhm.
Fucking piece of shit.
Cult leaders.
So again, I'm not saying it's okay that they were that the women in the LDS community, right? Because like, look, my friend lived in one of those communities at one point, and I think I've talked about it in season 1 or 2. But her, there are people who are constantly just searching for something, and I think that's what her mother was. And they wound up on. Maybe her parents were raised Mormon in the first place and they went back to Mormonism after they started having kids. I can't remember, right? But when she was about 10 to 12 years old, lived in a Mormon community, like white Mormon community. I don't know if it was specifically LDS or not, but it was definitely like the boys get kicked out at a certain age and the girls be marrying way too young. There was a teacher that whenever she was left alone with the children, she would be honest with them, like, girls, you need to pay attention. You need to learn as much as you can. You got to get out of here as soon as you're able. This is no way for you to live. And she literally risked her life to be honest to these girls. And is it right for us adults to risk our lives for children that are not ours? Yes, I totally agree with that. But it takes a special kind of person to be able to be like that. And when you have been raised and brainwashed, it's really hard to be that person. So I don't think it's okay what they did, but I cannot think that they are bad people because of the situation that they were in. If we never give people credit for the situations they're in and we're always just like, you're falling short, you're not good enough, where's the humanity in our side of things? And I'm not judging you I'm just saying, like, I can't see it that way because, like, yes, this young woman, I hope you're okay and I hope you are living the best life. And I hope if what you want is that you're still there doing the good work, I hope that's where you're at. And it's great that she was there, but when you're in that, like, how do you get out? It's when you don't know what your options are.
I don't know.
They keep it away from you.
I hear you out. It's very hard for me because I feel like that could be used for a lot of things, like including overseas situations where, women are holding down other women and letting them get raped. Like women are holding down children and letting them get raped. You know what I mean? If we say, but this is how someone was raised and they're brainwashed into this belief.
But you're brainwashed. There is no other way when you're brainwashed. Just like you were talking last night about a different situation where it's like, well, of course, this person doesn't see it as wrong and why other people should be bothered because to them, there is nothing wrong. When you are brainwashed, how do you know?
I don't know. I think
because literally the term brainwashing means you've been forced to agree with this, be a part of
if
this.
someone is brainwashed to an extent where they are harming children and they will not see any other way, and they've been,
but you can't. Like,
well, then should
you're
they
making
live?
it.
Should they live if
I-
they're going
nobody
to
in that-
continue
okay,
to be a danger?
The
to
reason
people?
that those women are doing what they're doing is because the situation that we have created in the Western world by using cell phones and these other things, because those situations exist, because people are being forced to mine for these metals and do it.
What, are we talking about the LDS? What are you referencing?
Oh, you were still talking about the LDS
Yes.
with the holding down. I'm sorry, I
Oh,
was referencing the
absolutely.
Congo
No,
because
no,
that
no, no,
happens
no.
in the Congo right now, every day, all the time. every
No,
moment.
I was
That is
still
happening
referencing
right now
the
as we
LDS.
speak, and it's because of these things.
Yeah, it's horrible. Actually, I just had that conversation with my uncle just now because we
Yeah.
need that lithium for our
I
batteries.
was
and
just thinking
fucking
about that
disgusting.
situation earlier. So when you said
No,
that,
I just
I
had that
immediately went to
conversation.
Congo. So I wasn't
No,
thinking about.
I brought
know
it
what
up
you're talking about
specifically
because that
of
does
the-
happen there as well in
Yes.
the LDS.
Well, and it
but-
was in that documentary, and like they recorded it for him. They recorded.
I'm not
it for
saying
him.
it's okay.
You know
like,
what I mean?
like I'm not saying it's okay. What I'm saying is I can't, if you are brainwashed, how can I blame you? You know, I don't agree with what you're doing, but where is my humanity if I can't accept that you are a human being who has been so tortured
Mhm.
that you don't know right from wrong?
Well, and
Like
that calls into play
your
if-
ideals of right have been tainted
Mhm.
by somebody. I blame the people that did it.
Well,
Fuck
if
yeah, I
somebody,
blame the people that did this to these women.
okay, if somebody doesn't know right from wrong because they're brainwashed, are they safe to have in society?
I'm not saying that they are
You know what I
necessarily.
mean?
There are ways of unbrainwashing people.
Mhm.
You can, like, there are companies that do it. I know because I learn a lot of shit about cults, you know.
Mhm.
And like people, they hire somebody to take their loved one out of a cult, and when that person is removed from their cult, oh, like they are not okay with it, and you have to teach them what is the appropriate. And see, when I say appropriate, I hate that word
Well, no,
right
I
now
get
in this
you.
because, like, but you have to get them out of the brainwash and back into this is what real life is.
Mhm.
What
And
they
it's like,
had you doing was wrong. And now this
you can't
person has to
force
deal with
someone to do that.
everyone. Like, they have to
Mhm.
deal with what they've done to people. And if you are brainwashed and you look back at something you've done, maybe that's all it takes for you to go, oh my fucking God, they've been lying to me this whole time. That's wrong. But when you're brainwashed and you're not out of it, I can't find fault with you as a human being. I can find fault with the people that made you what you are. And I do. But when you're in that situation, like, you're not you. And this isn't a Snickers commercial either. I'm not
No,
saying
I get you. I think it's
the humanity.
I
Like,
think it's where
it's not a choice you're making.
it's not, but then at what point is it like this person, yes, they're brainwashed, so unfortunate that they went through that. We can't, at what point is it like this person's not going to change, this person doesn't want to change from being brainwashed? You can't force someone to
Well, yeah,
want
you
to change.
well, you can't force someone to want to change, but when these people get kidnapped from the cult and put through the therapy,
But they're
they do
kidnapped.
come out of it. They
Some of
do,
them,
like,
not
some
all
of them, some of them go back to the cult because
Mhm.
they can't be deprogrammed. That's the word, deprogrammed. They can't be
and that's where
deprogrammed.
it's dangerous.
Well, I mean, it's dangerous from the get-go, and it's because of people like Warren Jeffs who start these things. You know,
I
it's-
guess it comes to say
everyone else is a victim of these people.
a victim can easily become a predator as well. And it
Well,
happens
but
all the
when
time.
you're in the situation of being brainwashed, because we did just have that conversation, and I do believe a victim can become a predator. And again, it's because of, like, from a humanitarian perspective, I can't not see the humanity in what made them the way they are. They also made a choice in that situation. When you're brainwashed, you're not making a choice, and that is my point. When you're making a choice actively, it's a very different situation. And if you can't be deprogrammed, that's not you, because you've been brainwashed. You think this is your only way to fucking God. So these guys are the devil keeping you from God. And so, of course, the devil lays traps, right? That's what they teach you to
Mhm.
keep you trapped in this cult mentality of, I am your savior. I am the one that will get you to the promised land. I will get you on that spaceship where you'll live forever as an alien. I'll get you into heaven, and you will live with all of your wives serving you, and you as a wife will serve your husband in eternity in the Garden of Eden, because you toiled in this life and did what you were supposed to. And when anybody tries to speak against that, like, that's how cult leaders are brilliant. They have people convinced they are the salvation. And it's that animal magnetism that is from, what's his name? Hold on, I'm gonna look up this homeboy's name so I don't say the wrong name. It's from the animal magnetism from that was induced by or introduced by Franz Mesmer, whose teachings and ideologies feed into the 1970s New Age movement. And he talked about animal magnetism and it being like that charisma. And like when I was reading about animal magnetism as it plays into the New Age like theories and stuff, it very much made me think of people who are cult leaders who are so charismatic, they can convince people to let a grown man marry their 12-year-old child. Like, it's disgusting and it's despicable. But like, that kind of stuff happened during the New Age movement when people were taking advantage. You know, we just talked about last episode with fake spiritual leaders taking advantage and saying, my way is the way, right? And like, that is the dark side of this. And I wasn't trying to like bring it into the LDS and cults. I was just saying, like,
I know we got off, but that's how we do. That's how we do.
I was just like saying, like, all those little pockets of things that happened throughout the 1800s and the early 1900s really fed into this searching for enlightenment, yearning for enlightenment, yearning for a different way outside of Christianity.
Yeah. People see that, they take advantage, and they're still doing it to this day.
I mean, Tony Alamo, Jim Jones, like David Koresh, they were all in the height of this spiritual movement, you know, in the 70s and the 80s. Like, and they are the dark side of it, which I wasn't going to focus on at all. It was just interesting to me.
Well, I think the first half focusing on the dark side, and then we can come back from our
on the light. That's a good way to do it.
We'll focus on the light part of it. So here's a word about our sponsors.
Oh, whoa. We're only 20 minutes in. Oh, okay.
Well,
if we're going to talk about the dark half too, like in the same, before we move on and go to the light, there's this whole piece of the satanic panic that happened side by side. And I'd like to do a separate episode on the satanic panic, but you can't deny that spiritual, like the New Age movement of spiritualism moves in the 1970s, and all of a sudden in the 1980s, now everybody's afraid that there are Satanists and devil worshipers out there that are responsible for every killing that happens, every this that happens. Like, I don't know, do you think that's a coincidence?
No, I think things were changing, and they saw things were changing, and they were threatened by it. That's what I think.
I agree 100%, because actually,
but you know, you say satanic panic in the 80s and shit, but it's kind of happening nowadays.
True, but like as a kid in the 80s, like I just remember on like, okay, just like Out of the Addams Family, where Mr. Addams calls in and says to Sally Jesse Raphael, like, where can I find these witch doctors or whatever it is, because she has all these different like satanic practitioners or something on her talk show, you know, because it was all talk shows in the 80s. And back then there was a ton of stuff on the satanic panic on it. And it's just like, when the Addams Family did that in that scene, it, to me, it kind of embodies so much of what the, you know, the pre-Jerry Springer trash TV covered, you know what I mean? Like I don't know, that is how I see that scene and like when we talk about the satanic panic, because I mean it was everywhere when I was a kid, like in the 80s and the 90s. I mean, even the Memphis 3. If you don't know about that, look it up. So I guess we will let you hear a word from our sponsors and we'll be back. Thank you so much for joining the show today. Today's show is brought to you by our sponsors, our very first sponsors, Calm Aura, and they have given us the Calm Aura Tree Devia tarot deck.
It's actually, it is such a beautiful deck. I mean, didn't you say it's lined in gold?
It is gold lined, and the art, like the box is just the tip of the iceberg with this art.
5 of Cups. I love this artistry. I hope
Gorgeous.
they can see it all right. The artistry is perfect. It fits perfectly in your hands. And
Such
to
a good
me,
hand feel.
as a tarot reader, it's all about the feeling that
Yes,
the hands. This is
absolutely.
perfect size. Perfect size. The the thickness of the card is
It's
also
so good
perfect.
for shuffling. It's
Yes.
like, as a tarot reader, you will love these cards.
Yes.
So if you would like to get your hands on one of these gorgeous decks or any of the other wonderful metaphysical offerings at Calm Aura, you can get your very own Tree Devia tarot deck and more at calmaura.com/witches talking tarot. And that is CALMOURA.com/witches talking tarot. If you want to see how to spell our name, you can find out when you go hit that subscribe button after the show.
Well, and I think you forgot the best part.
I just
you
haven't
get
gotten there yet.
10% off,
Yes.
right? You get 10% off.
Your whole order, so grab more than just the cards. Yeah. And thanks for coming to Sit a Spell. So enjoy the rest of this episode. Again, brought to you by the Calm Aura. Calm Aura Tree Devia tarot deck. So to get your 10% off your entire order at calmaura.com/witches talking tarot, use code tarotwitches10 when placing your order. Okay, thank you for sticking around for that word from our sponsor. And we're going to pick back up with religion is folklore.
So, with that being said, do you think anyone born into a religion is not any specific religion?
Yeah, we're not talking about pagans here. We're really not, actually.
but like anyone born into a specific religion with a set of rules that grows up and are told these specific rules, does that make them bad guys? Like,
For not seeing like a different way.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Well,
thank you so much.
So I don't think it makes them bad guys for not seeing a different way, but I think that's exactly where like Theosophy and Thelema and the things that came before Theosophy, because here's the thing, like Christianity, Judaism, Islam, they're not the only religions, right? They're the main religions that took over the world. Before that, there were all these other ideologies,
even
and
small
theologies.
pacts, and
Yes, right? So I truly think that all that came before leading up to the 70s and everything that happened leading up into the 70s, I believe that all of that allowed people to see like, this maybe isn't the only way to be, because our country is, America still calls itself a Christian nation,
right?
Even though like I think less than 50% of the population is Christian at this point. I guess one of us can Google that. But back in the 70s, information didn't move as quickly as it does now. We didn't have the internet yet, right? So, whereas Wicca was introduced to the UK and European population in the 1950s,
it took
until the
forever to get
60s.
over
Yeah,
to America.
right.
Like that's why like the New Age movement started earlier in the UK, and then it came over to the United States near the 70s, and
Right.
specifically boomed in the 80s and 90s. And I think I hope I'm going to try and say this, and I hope I'm doing it correctly. So I think what you're saying is, well, so people saw all these things, and as they're trying to move away from Christianity, because they don't necessarily believe in that,
But
we've
they
got
see a
some
different
predators
way.
coming in, and they're like,
Well, and that's
actually, we can work with that.
on the
you know?
dark side, but I'm
Oh,
not
okay,
talking
we're
about
not
the dark
doing that
side
anymore. Okay,
Right,
I'm
yeah,
just
no.
trying to summarize, like
Yeah.
get my head
But
like
I mean,
going.
that is accurate, but at the same time, like we're moving now into the light
Light
side, which is
side,
where
yes.
people are like, I've been taught this one thing. I was
Mhm.
raised Christian, or I was raised Catholic, or maybe I was even raised Jewish.
Mhm.
Back in the 70s, you're less likely probably to be raised Islamic here, but maybe you were raised that way. And you're seeing the tenets of your religion as it plays out into this melting pot we live in. And you
Mhm.
go, I don't agree, right?
Well, and maybe, like,
that's
a lot of
where
them-
I think the New Age, and not just me, I think I've read that as well, but I'm just speaking from my own personal opinion. I think that's where the New Age came from. And so are they all bad? No. But I think that act of being raised in these doctrines that you now disagree with because you have the ability to see more, I think that's where this comes from.
Well, and I think a lot of the New Age people took a lot of the positive aspects of Christianity while getting rid
Yes.
of, which was the love thy neighbor
Mhm.
and the, give to the poor. And it became like this hippie movement. And all of a sudden we're like, oh, fuck the hippies. You know what I mean?
Well, and I mean, I wouldn't even associate the New Age movement with the hippie movement.
oh,
because,
really? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there is overlay.
Well,
for
hippie is
sure.
more political, I guess.
Well, and also like, okay, so growing up, this is me personally, what I actually witnessed growing up in the 80s and 90s. And it's hippies are presented as the ones that have messy hair, hair go, and they wear tie-dye, or they wear like homespun looking kind of clothes that are very bright colored, but woven patterns and maybe patchwork, that kind of thing. They're the ones that play hacky sack, and they wear the cool Rasta hats, or maybe they practice Rasta as well. They're the earth loving, but New Age didn't necessarily mean the earth loving. New Age meant into crystals, into oils, into like that woo woo. Like, is one thing that I
holistic practitioners started coming forward, and people following more holistic paths, at least according to the research I did, was a big part of the New Age.
Yeah. No.
Was kind of doing more holistic. I mean, not necessarily fully against Western medicine, though some of them probably were, but like really focusing on with the herbs work and things like that.
I mean, and I will say definitely crystals. There was a lot of like crystals hitting them. All of a sudden people are like,
it's
into
essential
crystals.
oils now.
Right. Well, and I mean essential oils as well, but
Yeah.
like it was crystals and essential oils. There was the holistic medicine, but not necessarily people getting into herbs so much as people understanding that herbal medicine was an alternative to Western medicine. And so they're getting like supplements and stuff. Nowadays, it seems like we're working it ourselves a lot more. But back then, from what I witnessed, as far as like what's being advertised and what's in pop culture or whatever, it's more of getting the supplements from probably the hippies that were making it. And that's where that overlap comes into play, right? Because the hippies are like, we're not capitalists, but we see a market. But, like one thing that I really definitely, as I was reflecting upon this episode, I kind of came to realize, like, in pop culture, there was always that one woo-woo person in the 90s. Like in Living Color, we had Sinclair, Khadijah's cousin. She's woo-woo. And like episode 1, she's talking about, well, so-and-so's a Sagittarius moon and da-da-da's a Leo moon. And, now
So
I know
then
about birth charts,
astrology
and I'm
has
like,
a lot to do
what?
with the New Age.
Yes.
Astrology,
Yes.
spiritual healing,
And that,
or
the
energy
age of
healing.
Aquarius is a great thing to talk about here, because astrology, right? And a lot of, the people that are into the astrology, they're also talking about the age of Aquarius.
Right. And people have been talking about the age of Aquarius for a long ass time, from what I understand,
Well,
like since
my
the New
whole
Age
childhood.
started.
Yes, exactly.
And like nobody can agree whether or not it started or if we're still waiting on it. But the point is, like, we're either ascending into the Aquarius stage, which is going to bring with it understanding and knowledge and peace and that ascension.
And for anybody
or we're
who doesn't,
preparing for it.
and for anyone who doesn't understand what the age of Aquarius means, it's literally the way that the Earth's orbit moves, and the setup of the whole, like, Milky Way, planets, whatever, we are moving in front of the constellation Aquarius, whereas right now we're in front of, I believe, Pisces.
Yes, Pisces.
Yeah.
And you know
because
what?
it moves actually backwards, guys, as we go through these ages. And the ages last for like thousands
Centuries,
of
yeah.
years. Yeah, that's why nobody can agree if we're in Aquarius yet or not. And some people have posed that it started in the 90s. Some people have posed, like you said, in
2012. Some say
Um,
it's not even going to start till like 2100.
Right, exactly.
know?
I've seen like 20, I want to say I saw 2059 as a
Mhm.
number or 2058, something like that, which actually made sense to me because I'd seen some other stuff along with that number that about like changes coming. But like I looked into the age of Aquarius a lot at one point because I wanted to understand that term better.
Mhm.
And I got very not frustrated, but I discouraged because everything I found contradicted the
Mhm.
other thing I just read. You know, like nobody can agree. And it's so if you get confused or if you get frustrated looking into it, don't worry about it because the experts that do astrology and work with the stars for a living can't fucking agree on
So, like, here's my thought on the age of Aquarius. Not when it's starting, okay, but just in general. Do I think the New Age movement had everything to do with us moving into the age of Aquarius? Yes, I do. Either because we're preparing to move into the age of Aquarius, and so we as a collective, because when the age of Aquarius comes, I read it's going to stop being me and it's going to start being we. People are awakening to that because
individualism is bad for humanity.
that's literally what
I posted that on my Facebook months ago, and people were like, I just think Greenland,
um
and I think you're right on the we're moving into it. Like
mhm.
right now, this all has started because
So we can
you
be,
can be
ready,
because,
for
right.
it.
Once we're
Yes.
in the age of Aquarius, people can't catch up to that.
Exactly.
We gotta be ready for it.
Well, and I think
I
that's
agree
where the
completely.
New Age started, was people started
Feeling
feeling it,
that
that
pull,
pull and that
yes.
transition. So that's
Yes,
really
I
how I
agree.
think the two connect.
I agree
And you know,
completely.
maybe it did start in 2012. As I say this, I don't necessarily think so. I think we need more people to awaken and
Yeah.
feel this pull so
I think
that we can be
2050.
ready.
Yeah, I think 2058 is the
Mhm.
earliest
Mhm.
that would happen.
Well, we got to have more people ready for this. We can't
right
go
like,
into it where
well,
we are
not
right
just
now.
people.
Mhm.
The people have to get ready, and then we have to change the infrastructures that
Mhm,
exist
exactly.
so that when we get there, it's not going to topple society. Because the whole point of Age of Aquarius is that we will be a better society, not maybe it is us rebuilding society, but we gotta tear the shit down first before we can rebuild it.
Yeah.
And at this point, there's no fixing it. There's burning this bitch down and starting over.
And
like-
starting the what? The new age.
Yeah.
The new world order.
Damn it!
How were
I
you
was
gonna
like,
do
no,
that?
I knew you were gonna say it because I was like, New Age. That's so perfect. And I was like, New World Order. And then you started. And I was like, yeah, that's what she's saying. But like seriously, like in pop culture, right? Not only was Age of Aquarius all over the place, like every show seemed to have their token woo-woo person. Like
Yes.
on Friends, we've got Phoebe.
I love Phoebe.
I love Phoebe too. I wanted to name my oldest kid Phoebe. My husband was like, I hate that name. My daughter's like, I'm glad Dad hated that name. Like, so whatever. But Phoebe Buffet is wonderful. And Sinclair, love Sinclair. She's so much fun, and I love her clothes. But like even on, I think on Blossom, her friend Six was kind of woo-woo. Clarissa's mom was like a vegan in the 90s, or at least a vegetarian, if not a vegan in the 90s. The whole family had to be because Clarissa's mom was the woo-woo lady. And
what
she
about
was
Dharma
raising,
and Greg?
oh yeah, Dharma and Greg. That
I
whole
love
family.
her name.
Dharma. Yeah. I love that show so
It was really good.
every time I hear Steve Miller Band Peaches, I wanna I sure like your peaches, wanna shake your tree. I love that song. I can't remember the name.
Midnight Toker.
Is it that?
I
Is it the
really
same
love
song?
your
Peaches,
Yeah, it's
wanna
that
shake
is
your
the
tree. But like
Yeah.
because like the dad has played that for the mom one night, like Dharma's parents, I was like, instantly as a kid understood now what that line meant. And every time I hear it, I'm like, Dharma and Greg. Every single time I hear it, I'm like, Dharma and Greg. I do love that. Anyway, but there in pop culture, like it was a part of life by the 90s, but it started in the 70s. And I remember in the 80s. So this is where I say, like, I don't associate it with hippies so much on the new age piece, because I remember in like the 80s, it was like with like women with like bleach blonde hair and like yoga pants. That was what like was representative of new age. You know what I mean? Like legitimately, that is how I kind of pictured it.
Well, let's look at Charmed. The
Yeah.
show Charmed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Late 90s. Yeah. I mean, there were, and each of those was different, you know, like, because one of like Piper was Phoebe was way more woo-woo than her sisters,
Exactly,
100%.
yes.
And like they were all magical, right? But like it like the new age, I think, became a part of the cultural zeitgeist because everybody in this country has been looking for something more. And I mean, it's the human condition, right?
Well, and I think the new age was more of a spiritual pulling as well. Just like we got to prepare and get ready for this.
I agree. And I think it was really an awakening to understanding that like what has been historically at that point presented as the way, right? Because we're talking about the 70s. There's no internet to find out about, like, you mostly knew about what you were taught by your elders. Most elders weren't teaching the masses about paganism, like the paganism of their predecessors, right? They called them like heathens and uncivilized, right? Like they're not taught about like the good things we took away. Like your holidays came from these ancestors as pagan holidays. They're not taught that, not at all. Like they're taught this one narrative. So they don't have the knowledge that we have now, right? So like they just had to open their eyes to like, there's a better way, there's a different way based on the little bits that they could get knowledge wise. And like, I think they really like embraced and ran with it because of how fast it spread through communities. I don't know. What do you think about like the spread of new age outside of cults? We already covered that.
I really think the spread of new age was, yes, it was popularized. I mean, people capitalized on it as well. But I truly believe that it was people being drawn to prepare for the age of Aquarius.
Oh, yeah. Because, like,
you know,
people rally against new age, right? So, like, they're the ones who aren't ready to open their eyes. And I don't mean that rudely to anybody who doesn't subscribe to this way of
was
living.
coming out, it was like them damn weirdos. And, you know,
Well, in addition to, like, just the whole, like, the growth of the new age movement, right? So like in the 90s, it's everywhere,
right?
You know, all through pop culture. Like you can look at the music, you can look at the TV
practical
shows,
magic. I know that's like more
movies.
witchcraft as opposed to new age. But
yeah. Well, I mean, but witchcraft came out of new age because like witchcraft or pre-new age was spiritualism introduced to people as a practice, a religious practice outside or a spiritual practice outside of Christianity or Christian tenets, right? And in spirituality, Christians, like, they condemned it. I'm so glad you brought this up. Actually, I meant to mention this. So Christians condemned spirituality, right? And they called it like they compared it to the witchcraft in the Bible, right? And so like they demonized the spirituality movement, which came like, probably like 100 years or more before the New Age movement, right? But a lot of the New Age movement tenets come out of previous things, including spiritualism, right? So in spiritualism, that whole like, it was compared to witchcraft, right? So then these people in the 1970s are seeing it, they're adapting these tenets. The literature that's probably available is demonizing it and putting witchcraft in that space. And so I truly think that what we view as witchcraft today is going to align more closely with spiritualism versus actual factual witchcraft, because everything that's been written about witchcraft for hundreds of years
has been destroyed or demonized.
well has been the demonization of spiritualism. So I think like what we associate as witchcraft is probably closer to spiritualism than what our pagan ancestors practiced as the craft, except for the little bits that are succeeding, and you don't have much written down because it's the craft, the witchcraft. But that I do think that goes hand in hand with the New Age movement. But like, I also think the reason that it took such an uptick in the 90s is you've got all these people who in the 70s, they got raised into that movement, right? So now they're the content creators of being in bands, being on TV, making TV shows, writing, being the writers on things. And so they pitch, oh, we should have a character that's like this, so that they can get it more out there into the zeitgeist. And like, I think that that's why we saw the uptake in the 90s that we saw. And we also, why we saw the resistance in the 80s that we saw with the Satanic Panic.
I think it's very interesting to see how spirituality as a whole has changed so drastically within the 1900s. And I say that starting at 1900 to 1999, because it changed so drastically within that 100 years. And it has led to where we are today.
I totally agree with you.
It's very interesting.
It is very interesting. And if you guys are interested in the things that led up to New Age here in the States anyway, you can look into Thelema, which is the religion that was brought forth by Aleister Crowley. You can look into Theosophy, which is a religion that was made or created by Helena Blavatsky. If you think that all paganism is Wicca, it's not. Wicca was created by Gerald Gardner in the 1950s, and you can look more into that and its inception. And all of these are just
these are just three out of however many.
Exactly.
So many new. I mean, fuck. You can even include Satanism in there.
I was about to, yeah.
Like so many just different pockets.
Yes, and
like we're going back.
There's different pockets,
exactly.
Like, which I really am excited to do an episode about the Satanic Panic, and I guess we could probably talk more about the satanic churches that exist in that conversation as well, because like some people might think that Luciferians and Satanists are the same thing, but they're not really, because Satanists don't believe in like Christianity at all. And Luciferians worship Lucifer, who is a Christian entity.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. It's all so interesting. And I guess the point to take away from today's episode is there's so much that goes into the little that we know about a thing, right?
And then everything is built up of yin and yang.
Right. And we now have the opportunity and the privilege of being able to research these other things, because before you had to go buy the books, but you had to find somewhere that had the books, and
now we have the internet.
Exactly. So use it. It's
a lot easier than our is it predecessors?
Our predecessors.
Predecessors, yeah, it's a lot easier than
exactly. No, so it's like use this little bit of information, because this is like a conversation, right? We're not getting into like certain details, but like there's so much that built up New Age, and it's a great place to start to see what came before, because each place you take a step backward, you're gonna go further back, and you're gonna go further back, and you're gonna go further back. You know what I mean? Like Franz Mesmer, I learned that this motherfucker used animal magnetism to cure a famous musician in Vienna of blindness, right? And per the article that I was reading, it said she was removed from his care when they thought that there was possibly a scandal going on, and she was gonna lose her disability money because she was getting her sight back.
Oh God.
And then
just like that one bitch's toe grew back, and that's why they can't tell everybody why. They're like, we can't show you.
Oh no, opposite. I think the opposite. I think he was curing her blindness, but she was gonna lose getting paid for being blind by like whatever their government was. So the people who were like her guardians were like, oh no, there's something inappropriate here. got to remove her from his care. Now she's completely blind again and fully eligible for her benefits, but his career is ruined and he had to leave Vienna. Like, I think it's the opposite of that, although that is like, that is that
I
whole,
just
like,
mean
you
like
know,
I
but-
like that
The
excuse
excuse,
because
right.
like why didn't the church use that excuse? Oh, but she could lose her benefit. We
Right.
can't show you. And
I don't know. It really bothered me because I think that a great scientist who had some, I don't believe in animal magnetism the way he did, but if he's using what he's doing and he can cure this girl of blindness who's been blind like since she was like 2 or 3 years old, and she was like 17 or something at the time, and he made it where she had partial vision again. And we lost that because somebody was like, "Oh, she's gonna lose her benefits."
I could see that.
I just am like, why would, like, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there was a scandal, but I think like it just seems awful fishy to me the way it was put. That's my opinion. But you can look more into Franz Mesmer and other people that led to all the ideologies that feed into the New Age movement. Which, if you are our fellow pagan, the New Age movement feeds into what we got today. So educate yourselves, I guess, and like, if
and
you
hit the like and follow button. Oh,
Yes.
sorry. Was that where you were going with
well,
that?
I was going to Patreon, but yeah, do that first.
But yeah, and hit that like and follow button. We can learn and grow together.
Absolutely. And if you are our patron supporting us on patreon.com/witches talking tarot, we totally appreciate you, Victoria.
Melissa
Death by DVD.
and Pam.
Thank you. If you would also like your spiffy little shout out and whatever extras that Patreon has to offer, you can find us at the aforementioned link. And when you're going to do links, don't forget to go to calmora.com/witches talking tarot to get your own beautiful tarot deck. I just thought I'd throw it in.
Oh, hell yeah. You can find us on Threads, Facebook, and Instagram at Witches Talking Tarot.
And you can find us on the X at Classiest Witches because we are the classiest witches you know. So thanks for coming to sit with us for a spell.
Bye. Oh,
That
God.
was fun. I liked that.
Yeah, that was
Like